Watch this. No way!
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast. I am Tom Mills and today I'm joined by Sam Williams.
Greetings, Thomas.
And we've got PGA Pro and founder of the Butt Club, Zach Blair. Zach, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
No, our pleasure, absolutely. As always, guys, you can get in touch with us on @CookieJarGolf on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you are new to the podcast, please do consider subscribing. There are over 100 other episodes of us waxing lyrical about golf with different guests and on different topics. So please do have a little skim through the back catalogue. But in the meantime, we'll just dive straight into it. I mean, for those of our listeners who aren't aware of yourself and the project that you've embarked on in the past few years, really, I mean, tell us a little bit about your route into golf, professional golf, and this whole thing about the Butt Club, which, I mean, has just grown arms and legs into this mutant golf machine that you've built. I mean, it's fantastic. It's incredible what you've done. Tell us a little bit about the Butt Club. What's it all about and what's the goal?
Yeah, so originally it started, with this idea of building a national club in Utah. That's kind of what the dream was, to have this really cool golf course where people from all over the world came and, played golf and stayed there. And, we're surrounded by a bunch of other people like them. It was obviously, something that when it started, I didn't necessarily think it was going to be easy, but it was harder than I thought to kind of get people to kind of buy into the idea more so locally. Obviously you need a lot of money to build a golf course and a golf club. So, you need land, you need investors, you need all of this stuff to kind of go the right way. And, when we kind of got into a lot of that stuff in Utah, the more I learned and the more we got deeper into the process, it was kind of evident that it might not be kind of the perfect place to start or try and do that. We had been running with it for a handful of years, hoping to make it work, and just, never got off the ground like I wanted it to. We continued to kind of do some events and, make some merchandise, and people seemed to really like a lot of that stuff. So it kind of shifted into more of this, social club, I guess, that is just all about golf, I guess. But it's been really cool. We host a handful of events each year. And like I said, we make some merchandise like hats and head covers and all that sort of stuff, which is really, something that I enjoy about it from my creative side. It's cool to do the putter head covers and all that sort of stuff. And people seem to like it. So
You're a pretty modest man, Zach, because I think the demand for this stuff is through the roof. I think for most clubs with a golf course, they'd give their right arm for the kind of the merchandise that you guys are kind of, putting into people's hands out there, and it's got a huge global following. I think that's awesome. I'm really curious though, because obviously a huge amount of what you're about and everything that you kind of maybe share socially and everything that the Tree Farm stands for seems to be rooted in a really strong passion for architecture. Was that the sort of burning reason behind trying to get the Butt Club off the ground initially, or was it more kind of experiential, trying to create a different sort of feeling around a golf course, for want of a better term?
Yeah, I mean, really how it all kind of started was I had got out on tour and I had started seeing a lot of really cool golf courses, really, really good kind of golden age architecture type clubs. And, seeing that, it was kind of like, wow, we don't have anything like this in Utah. I think it would be really cool to try and do something like this that really just kind of focused on being all about golf, the experience as well, but just having a really, really world-class golf course and having this kind of national club around it. That's definitely how it started. And then obviously as we kind of learned more and it shifted into other, other avenues of kind of some of the events and some of the merchandise, I kind of stepped back and was like, wow, there's this huge group of people that, probably would never be able to join this club or, afford the initiation fee, maybe, like maybe we should do something different. And that's where the idea of TBC kind of shifted into, when we do it, we still want to do something like that in Utah, but maybe making it more of like a public type place with that kind of Sweetens Cove type model where a bunch of people can go out and, maybe rent the course for the day or come in and visit and see it. And it's not really breaking the bank to go stroke some sort of initiation fee or something like that.
Yeah, I guess the access in golf in America, it's a really expensive pastime out there. And I guess, we're naturally going to come on and talk about your trip to England shortly. But, I think that whole momentum of golfers that actually don't want to be wedded to a country club, can't afford £100,000 joining, $300,000 joining fee rather. It feels like, maybe the Buck Club's almost become a bit of a catalyst for that. And it's sort of, there's a number of places that, I've not been to Sweetens Cove, I've not been to Bandon Dunes, but they've become a really big kind of identity spot, haven't they, for golfers who don't buy into the traditional country club mentality, I guess.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's just, Sweetens was really the first place that I was, it was just so different in terms of how they kind of operate. And it's obviously changed a little the bigger that they've got, but, I think it would be cool to do something more on the public side, because that's just something that I think would fit that what the brand has turned into and kind of fit the area of Utah a little better than, your typical private club model.
It's interesting. The other thing, just on your playing career as well, you mentioned that playing kind of out on tour and, seeing the number of venues you were playing kind of ignited a bit of passion for the architecture, and yet, sometimes you could almost criticize the regular tour venues for being maybe a little kind of similar, it's different brand of architecture, perhaps, to the kind of golden age. A lot of those courses have become maybe a little less relevant over time. You kind of building sort of stuff around your tours and kind of able to play other places, or was there a specific spot where it was like, yeah, do you know what, on tour, this was just the one for me? This really just kind of ignited a massive passion for it.
Well, yeah, I would definitely say I didn't draw a ton of inspiration behind a lot of the tour venues, a little different. But I will say the real kind of like aha moment was my rookie year playing the Greenbrier and just, seeing how different TPC Old White was to anything else that I had played. It was kind of my first, Rayner McDonald kind of experience. And it was definitely like, wow, this is really, really cool and really unique. And that was kind of the first idea for TBC and it was honestly before anybody else had started doing it, was this idea of maybe doing this kind of Rayner inspired golf course, which, they some of them just look way different than, something else that you would see normally. And obviously now there's a handful of places that have kind of gotten into that. I know that that place up in, what is it? I played there earlier this year. It's the South Course at Arcadia Bluffs. They did this whole kind of Chicago Golf Club inspired Rayner type place, and it turned out really cool. I'm glad where I'm at now. I'm glad that idea never kind of got off the ground. I don't think it would have turned out as good as I would have hoped, but I've definitely learned a lot in the last 5 or 6 years.
And you've gone through quite a process, really, in terms of what's happened with the Buck Club and the plans for the golf course that you wanted to design. You've settled in a property in the Carolinas with a tree farm. So tell us a little bit about the tree farm and who's involved and any information you can give us, really.
Yeah. So again, a pretty colorful, story of how it all got there. again, the more I kind of learned about it and the more we saw how the Utah thing was going to be a bit of an uphill battle to kind of get it off the ground, we started thinking, what would be the best place to do something like this and have, the greatest chance of success. And the things that we kind of saw early on were, Utah is kind of a short season for golf. You got winter that can come early and stay late, and then you've got pretty hot summers. So your kind of sweet spot for your golfing window is shorter than somewhere maybe down south. And then the travel aspect as well. Utah is kind of pretty isolated out on the west side of, America. There's not a lot of places that you're just kind of driving through Utah to get to somewhere else. So the travel and the seasonality of it were big catalysts in looking somewhere else. And it was kind of easy, like, all right, let's go look in the Southeast United States. There's a massive population that can get there relatively easy by car. And, going up and down the East Coast, you're obviously traveling through other states to get to, the Northeast or the very, Floridas and stuff like that. So it was like, let's look in the Southeast a bit. And I had some friends, Andy Johnson in particular, that was just down in Aiken, maybe hosting an event at Aiken Golf Club, and was just like, man, the land around here is like really cool, sandy soils, good topography. They love golf around here. They got the Masters close by. And so I literally just started like looking on the internet for pieces of property that were basically between like 250 and 500 acres of like sandy soil kind of parcels, and ended up finding, a bunch obviously, and kind of narrowed it down to a handful that looked like they were in good spots in terms of, easy to get to, and, having enough kind of elevation and land movement to make interesting golf without having to kind of create it. And ended up finding the piece of property that we bought last year, and kind of went out right during the middle of the pandemic. It was pretty wild. I can't believe we actually did it. It was like literally in the middle, like no one was traveling, and somebody had bought the property kind of next door. And we were like, dude, we can't lose this property. We got to go check it out and take a look. And ended up doing that. And all of us were like, yeah, man, we got to kind of close on this thing, and ended up doing it. So it was pretty wild.
You've got to love America. You've got to love it. Yes, hang on just a sec, Tom. 500 acres of sandy soil. I mean, like in England, there is not 500 acres you can buy without having to mortgage every person in the country. It is incredible. Like I've been to Aiken. There is just so much space out there and so much land. That's just insane. Like, yeah, I'm just looking on the internet for 500 acres of sandy soil, please. It just pops up.
I mean, it's probably, I tell people the story and they're like, that can't be true. And like that is literally how it happened. Found it and was like sitting on our couch and was just like, maybe we should go like do this. Like there was nothing going on. The PGA Tour was kind of done at that time. All sports in America and around the world were obviously like shut down. And it was like, I was just honestly like kind of sick of people like, just like saying it was never going to happen, and being like, I always knew once we actually had a property, we could get the momentum going behind it and kind of get it going. And so, yeah, really like kind of back into it. And that's how it kind of started. And we didn't know, like, is this going to be TBC or is this something different? So we also had this kind of like weird situation for everyone involved. Like, are you involved in this project or is this like a completely different project? And there was definitely some kind of weird times, but it all ended up working out, and, got into a good spot and got a really good group of people kind of helping me out, and really happy with kind of where the tree farm's at. And actually starting on Thursday. So in 2 days, kind of dozers there. Kye's driving down to kind of get shaping going, and it's pretty exciting.
I mean, that's amazing. I can't even imagine what the person who was selling it listed it as on Google for you to find 500 acres of sandy and acidic soil. But so you get there, you've seen this property on the internet. You get there, you hop the fence, you walk on, you think, yeah, this is it. Do you just kind of look around and think, okay, there's the clubhouse, right? This is one, and then just walk? Or, you know, how does that process even from scratch? How does that even start? It sounds just daunting just thinking about it.
Yeah, again, I mean, there's been a lot of evolution to it, and it's definitely a lot different than, you know, the first day we were on site. I think there was maybe 4 or 5 of us, and it was, you know, we're just walking on foot, and, you know, 500 acres is not a small place. And, you know, it's overgrown, walking through bushes, and, you know, you're sitting there going man, this would be a really cool hole. And then you would walk and you'd be we got to be up where a green would be. And you'd be no, dude, we've only gone 100 yards, you know? So it was really, really different. And, you know, now obviously, you know, you get on Google Earth and you start looking at the topo map and you start seeing things. And I had never done any of this before. So it was very, you know, basic type stuff of I think this is where something could go. We could do a hole here. We could do a hole here. Obviously getting people a lot smarter than me involved, like Tom Doak and Kye Goalby, have really helped make the routing what it is. Yeah. But yeah, it was a very cool experience that first day. And I definitely know that me and the handful of people that were out there will definitely never forget that.
How much of that routing is sort of in the dirt, walking the course, you know, staking out the green sites, and how much of is kind of Tom working with topographical maps and trying to just be really practical around it?
Yeah. So how he kind of operated, and, you know, the first kind of routings that I put together were usually just, you know, solely based off of kind of having an idea of what the property was, you know, walking around it, driving around it enough to know what things were, and then looking at the map and being these could make cool holes. And it's probably not the best routing or whatever, but I thought it was pretty good for kind of our first crack. And then when Tom got involved, it was really, really cool to see his process, you know, which was a lot different, of him basically throwing together a handful of routings, just looking at the map before kind of going into the site visits, you know, because I mean, he's so good with those topo maps that, I mean, he kind of can see immediately, there's a good green site, there's a good green site, there's a good green site. And then just kind of tying those holes together to kind of make, you know, a seamless routing work together. And that's where I really struggled, where I could find, you know, some really, really good holes, but I would get stuck in a certain spot trying to get out. And then you're kind of compromising, you know, making some, you know, maybe not great holes to kind of fit in your holes that you think are great. And he's a lot better at kind of getting out of those situations than anybody else that I know, obviously.
Obviously over here in the UK, we managed to cram some pretty good golf courses onto some pretty small land. 500 acres is a fair old amount of land. I mean, what's your plans in terms of number of holes, number of courses that you're hoping to put on this plot?
Yeah. So the main course that we kind of have getting ready to be built right now, I think we did a good job with it of, you know, holes aren't just right on top of each other, but there are areas, you know, within the routing where you do have a lot of interaction with other holes. And that was kind of something that was big to me, that I wanted, was to, you know, have that social aspect of seeing other people golf. I just think it's fun to be able to interact with, you know, other groups or friends, and, you know, get sneak peeks of certain holes and then kind of come back to that area. So Tom kind of referred to his routing as he's a little bit of a land hog. I think it was something like he said that one time. So, I mean, he didn't use all 500 acres, but let's say he used 270 of them. And so there's definitely room for some other stuff to go on out there. So within that 500, we'll have the 18-hole course, the kind of practice facilities, the irrigation pond, and then kind of all the built environment of the clubhouse and the lodging. And then we'll have room for kind of another, third nine, if you will. Some inspiration, came from like Morfontaine or, the green nine that's still around at St. George's Hill, like something a little shorter or quirkier that's a little different from the main course, but will give you kind of that auxiliary set of holes to be able to send people out that come in early or want to stay late.
It can be the most rewarding as well, can't it? I mean, we recently went to Northern Ireland. In fact, I think I might have mentioned to you when we're messaging, and we played the 9-hole course at Castle Rock that's there. They've got an 18-hole championship course, but there's a 2,500 yard 9-hole through the dunes, and just having those little bolt-ons it just makes it, it's like sometimes a second loop's too much, but you want a bit more golf, and it just totally makes it. I guess kind of just moving a little bit into the recent England trip or UK trip, whatever. First, big congratulations on getting over here, because obviously we'd been messaging a little bit before you came over. I'd got wind that you were coming over on, I'd heard it referred to as like an inspiration trip or an inspo trip or something. I don't know if that's accurate. But yeah, just talk us through the trip, and then we can obviously get into some of the courses that you visited. But the idea is that fair to say it was like a sort of bit of an inspo sort of visit, I guess? Yeah,
absolutely. I think, Heathland golf has been something that has kind of caught my eye in the last, I would say 2 years, or really ever since we were looking at this property in Aiken, or had visited this property. And then I remember specifically kind of Kye had come out one time, and I asked him if there were any golf courses or places, where he felt the topography or the kind of setting was similar. And he had mentioned, a handful of Heathland golf courses. And I was like, that would be really cool to kind of do that in America. Obviously we can't grow the heather, exactly like it is over there, but the whole aesthetic and the look and kind of the movement of those golf courses was something that, I really, was trying to do with this place. So we kind of had this idea that it would be a good idea for a handful of us that are involved in the project to go check out those places right before construction started, to kind of give us some really good inspiration, right? Going into the build. So we had a really good kind of itinerary ready to go for, I don't know, like 5 months ago or 4 months ago, but obviously the world was like locked down at that point still, and traveling over to England was pretty difficult. So it basically got just like pushed aside, and it was kind of like, shit, this isn't going to happen because, we're starting this fall. And then kind of last minute, Will Smith from the Outpost Club, invited us to tag along for this match at Deal that they do every year. And we were able to kind of piece together a handful of stops before and after, in the London area. So it was pretty crazy. So like, it wasn't like a last second trip, which makes the passport story even crazier. Like, I knew that this trip was happening. And then I also knew that like the actual trip that we were going on, that we did end up going on, was happening for like multiple months, which makes it even crazier too. So for everyone that like hadn't heard or doesn't know, I was on my way to the airport, like filling out the forms that we needed to like get into the country. Then my flight was in like 3 hours. And I was like, holy shit, my passport is expired. And I remember like looking at it being like, this isn't real, like thinking it was a dream or something. And like just staring at the expiration date, thinking like, please change, please change, please change. And it had expired like a week ago or something like that, 2 weeks ago. So it was pretty like my heart just dropped, and I was like, this is so sad, because like I've been wanting to see these places, and Kye was going over, and he had kind of jumped through a bunch of hoops to make it happen. And everyone was going to be there, and we were going to have this big kind of jam session about what we were going to do on these holes and how all this stuff would work out. And I was like, man, this like really, really sucks. So I didn't really know what to do. I was with my friend in the car that was like coming with me, and I had to just like drop him off at the airport and be like, all right, have fun. Like, I'm not going. And he thought I was like kidding for the longest time. He was like, what do you mean you're not coming? And I was like, I told you my passport's expired. Like, I can't come. So luckily I have a friend that his name's Brandon Hargett, that any situation in life, this guy has done it or has some sort of advice on it. And he was like, oh man, no worries. Like, I've done this like multiple times. You're just going to hop on a plane. You're going to go to San Francisco, and you're going to go to like the passport agency, and you'll be out of there in like 4 or 5 hours. You'll be able to probably hop on a flight tonight. And I was just like, there's no way that, like, you know, passports take like months to get renewed. Like, there's no way this is real. And I started like looking into it. And obviously with COVID, stuff is a little harder, and, you know, you have to have an appointment to get into these passport agencies, but ended up somehow getting a meeting at the Dallas passport agency. So I ended up hopping on a flight later that night, flew down to Dallas, had an 8 o'clock meeting the next morning, kind of first in, got in, went through the whole thing, and had a passport like an hour later, and like bumped up my flight, hopped on a flight to Atlanta out of Dallas, and connected to London, and was there kind of the next morning. I literally only missed one round of golf, which was pretty crazy.
Scenes. Tom,
yeah,
all I'm saying is, if you're ever in Dallas and you see a US customs official walking around with a butt club hat and bragging about his new putter head covers, you've got to ask some searching questions to Zach. That's all I'm going to say. So, funny enough, we've been messaging, hadn't we? Because you were doing St. George's Hill, I think, on day one. But didn't you go and play like Worplesdon, I think, in the morning? You got off a flight at 7 o'clock in the morning, played Worplesdon, then played St. George's Hill. I think a friend of ours, Sam, came and played with you. Shout out to Links from the Road, Sam Cooper. Played with you in the afternoon. He was like, yeah, Zach was on great form. I was like, mate, he's through the ringer the last 48 hours. I'm surprised he wasn't asleep on the first tee.
Yeah, there was definitely a moment kind of late in the Worplesdon round where it was like, there's no way I'm playing this afternoon. And then I kind of got a bit of a bolt of energy kind of rolling through the gates and kind of pulling up to the clubhouse at St. George's Hill, because again, that was one of the places that Kye was like, yeah, there's some very similar stuff at the tree farm land, you know, to some of the stuff out at St. George's Hill. So that was, as much of any course that I wanted to see, that was one that I was so pumped for. And it definitely kind of lived up to the hype for me. And it was really, really cool to kind of, you know, that really be the kind of startup to that trip.
Well, there's some really cool architectural stuff going on at St. George's Hill, and even just like the first and 10th tees basically being on top of each other, going opposite directions, all pretty cool stuff. But talk us through the courses you played, and you know, what were the big takeaways? Did Heathland Golf live up to your expectations?
Yeah. So we started out, the group played Swinley Forest the day that I missed, and then Worplesdon the next morning, St. George's Hill that afternoon, Royal St. George's the next day, Deal the next 2 days, Rye the next day, then popped back in and played Woking and Walton Heath, Old, and then both courses at Sunningdale.
Some trip.
So it's a pretty good itinerary, and you've managed to squeeze a bit of links in there as well. I mean, did the Heathland Golf, did it live up to expectations? Did you manage to get the inspiration that you were seeking?
Oh yeah, for sure. I thought it was so fun and so cool, and a little different. I think I'd never played anywhere with like heather. And I had just seen pictures of it and just been like, man, this stuff is so beautiful. It's like the coolest look and texture and everything like that. But man, it definitely left leaving the trip going like, we do not want heather anywhere near the golf course.
It's brutal, isn't it?
It's
brutal.
so brutal, and everyone is looking for balls every single hole, and it was tough. And it was cool though to see how it was managed at different places. Some places like Walton Heath, it was just like, you're not finding your ball. There's like no use even going in there. It's kind of a little longer, and it was just like full growth, full coverage. And then there was places like Woking and maybe a little bit at Sunningdale where it was a little more patchy, and there was kind of, chunks taken out of it here and there that were just kind of grass or sandy scrapes or whatever. So it was cool to see kind of the different presentations of it.
Some of them grade it as well. Like some courses you'll see they'll grade it as well. So you have like a Formby Ladies, I think, isn't it, Tom, where we played? They've got like a first cut of heather,
and
like a second cut of heather, and then the next is like, it's like your Walton Heath stuff. You're not finding it in there.
Yeah. So I definitely lived up to the hype though. It's just, I thought some of the land was so cool and the architecture was good, and there were some really cool holes, and, but mainly like the aesthetic was so pretty. And I really enjoyed kind of all the rounds that we played. Especially those Heathland courses were really cool.
Yeah, we messaged quite a bit about the St. George's Hill trip just because of that one. I think it's we're remiss not to mention a few things there, but I mean, that course just really hits you in the mouth hard, doesn't it? There's so much crazy elevation, and then you go only a few minutes away, you've got Sunningdale, which is just a lot more, it's flatter land, but it's a lot more intricate. There's lots more kind of nuance to it, and they're all actually really different. I'm quite curious that you obviously visit a lot of clubs in the US. I feel like the golf club feel is very, very different in the UK. I think partly there's some of the access stuff, different types of membership and stuff. Did you notice a kind of massive difference in terms of the club ethos maybe, and like just the general vibe around the places?
I think a lot of that probably comes from the access. It seems like in the UK, I mean, honestly, like everywhere outside of America, it's just, America's a lot more like shut off, a private club. Like you're not calling up Pine Valley and being like, hey, I'm popping over from like England on a golf trip. Like, do you think you could squeeze us in?
I've tried. I feel they don't do it. I've tried more.
I feel like, you could definitely get away with doing that at even the best clubs, in England. Like it just happens. So there is kind of this, different feeling around it. I don't know really what it is, but I think also just the way, you guys play two balls, and there's just a different feel to it. And it's really cool. I definitely left leaving going like, if there's a way to incorporate like foursomes at the tree farm, whether it's afternoon rounds or whatever, it's like the game is so social and it's so fun. It's like, there were definitely times like at Sunningdale, they were like, all right, we're going to play like 4 balls. And we were like, do we have to? We all want to play foursomes.
It's no hardship, is it? Playing foursomes. It's no hardship at all.
It's just like, it's just fun. You're out there with everybody, and it's just a lot more social, I feel like. And America, there's definitely this more, pencil and card, keeping your score, that sort of thing, where over there, it feels like it's a lot more kind of going out and having a good game. Like it doesn't really matter what anyone's shooting. It's kind of like, did we win the match or did we lose? Which, it is a lot more fun, I think, especially kind of with different levels of players. You're really just out there trying to hit shots and have fun and kind of enjoy where you're at, which it was really, really nice.
I think in terms of vibe, I mean, I've been fairly open on this podcast. I think Woking has just got a sensational vibe to it with that pavilion clubhouse thing and the 2-ball golf, and it's just, I think it's just such an amazing place for going out and playing 2-ball golf, whatever that may be, if it's foursomes or playing your own ball in 2 balls. Which clubs really, you know, hit hard that you weren't expecting? Or perhaps they're all worldies, aren't they? But which one were you really taken aback with?
Sunningdale for sure. I mean, I figured that it was going to be really good. Everyone said it was going to be really good, but definitely left leaving going like, there's like not a question what the best like 36 hole golf course in the world is. At least that I've played. You know, I've played Royal Melbourne, I've played Wingfoot, I've played LA North and South and Monterey Peninsula, and I really, really left going like, there's not even a question. It's just both of the courses are so good. I feel like all the other ones, there's a secondary course, if you will, where at the old and the new at Sunningdale, if they weren't called the old and the new, I don't think, you know, you wouldn't be like, oh, that's the second course. They're both just like really, really world class. So that one was, it was like, again, I expected it to be good, and it was just like way better than I expected, which is kind of saying a lot, I feel like. But honestly, like didn't play any that weren't good. Like you said, it was a really good itinerary. I was really sad I missed Swinley, but well, just there's a ton more courses that I wish we could have saw. So I'll definitely have to pop back over soon and go check them out.
It's always nice to have something that you've got to come back for, though, isn't it? You know, so it's always nice to have that feeling. Now, I'm going to ask you one question about Sunningdale. You probably know what's coming. I'm not asking you which one you prefer here, but it's the question that everyone always asks when you've been to Sunningdale. If you've got 10 rounds left at Sunningdale, how do you split them across the old and the new? How many on which? Yeah,
I said on Twitter, I said 6-4 new. My favorite stretch of golf was probably like 7 through 12 at the old, but overall, I enjoyed the golf a little more on the new. You know, they were so cool. I thought the green complexes were, I enjoyed the green complexes a little more on the new. But I mean, the old was really cool and charming, and had a bit more quirk to it, which I really liked. But if I was going 10 round split, I would go 6-4 new.
It's like picking your favorite child, though, isn't it? Really, it's an impossible question, but it's always interesting to know how you kind of split how you'd split them. You know, so I mean, one thing on the new, you know, is the par threes are really strong, and you know, we spoke before about this. You know, I personally think when you play a course, par threes are really kind of absolutely central to the experience. You know, for some reason, the par threes kind of make or break a lot of golf courses, in my view. And I think a lot of the places you played, you know, obviously Sunningdale, you know, some absolutely fantastic par threes, but there's a whole host of them actually around the courses you were playing. And I think that was kind of when you look at that itinerary, there's a pretty common thread there of just great one-shot holes, right?
Yeah, which again, you know, is one of the very strong characteristics of the tree farm. And there were literally like every hole at the tree farm, there was kind of a comparable hole on the trip that it was like, oh, that could be a really cool look for this hole, or that could be a really cool look for this hole. So I did leave kind of going like, I feel like we got some really strong par threes for some inspiration, and then knowing that we got some really strong par threes, you know, that will be built in the next handful of months, which is exciting.
That's amazing. I was literally about to ask, you know, was it a success in terms of inspo? And I mean, you're breaking ground in 2 days, so that's going to be, I mean, incredibly exciting for you. What does it look like in terms of time frame now between Thursday and hitting the first tee shot?
Yeah, so Kai is kind of coming in a little ahead of schedule, and just kind of mainly going to be solo for, I think, the rest of the month. just kind of getting some things started and roughed in. And then a couple more guys on the crew kind of come down towards, November, December, and kind of things pick up kind of full steam at the start of the new year. But the course should be all shaped and grassed by, next spring / summer. It'll grow in kind of through the summer and the fall, and then be ready 2023. So pretty right around the corner. So I'm sure there will be some T-balls hit.
You've got the climate, haven't you? You've got the climate. You can this stuff takes quick. It's like,
again, another just like learning experience from the Utah transitioning somewhere else was, the seasonality of it, growing, pulling people out of good weather to come to good weather is a lot harder than pulling people out of bad weather to come to good weather. And then that kind of plays into the whole growing as well. If you kind of down in Aiken, if you get a mild winter, I mean, you're growing in still kind of all throughout the summer and the fall, and, a little bit through the winter, where it's like, if you get somewhere where it's snow, it might take a course 2 or 3 years to like fully mature and grow in and be kind of ready for play.
And is there any chance that the first tee shot's not going to be you? Or is it going to be, get out my way, it's me first?
I think there will be a big group of us that, maybe throw one up at the same time, but I'll definitely sneak in a few before the real first one.
Absolutely. But Zach, you've been really kind with your time and generous in giving us the time to talk about the tree farm and your trip to the UK. And from both of all three of us, we wish you all the best with the tree farm, and good luck with it, really, because it's going to be a really fun 18 months for you now. And because of course you're still on tour and still playing as well, so you'll be busy. So good luck with it all.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.
Watch this.